Hello, this is Christiane Piano, and welcome to your Reset Reflection. This week's reflection is on blossoming. Spring is now underway, and spring is a time where the days get longer. We begin to see nature blossoming. And we ourselves have an opportunity to take a moment to reflect on our own maturation, our own process of development as a promise in a whole body-mind well-being perspective. So interestingly enough, if you look up blossoming, you'll find synonyms such as developing, budding, flourishing, thriving. And antonyms associated are withering, drying up, shrinking, losing vitality, fading away. So if you were to just close your eyes for a moment and think about your own growth, your own development, where you are in your life, how you're experiencing yourself first and foremost, which of those do you sense is unfolding for you? Obviously, it will shift on context, but if you just take a general sense, not just for the season of the year, but the season of your life. When it comes to body-mind well-being, spring is a wonderful time to take on the work of befriending your body. And if you were to think about your relationship to your body right now, is it a relationship of clinging, resisting, resigning, or simply being with? Think about that for just a moment. Sometimes we can cling to an idea of what we think our body should look like. If you're transitioning into a new phase of life, that can prove challenging, understandably so. But to really take on this reflection, as in with every reflection, when it comes to the growth process, being truthful and honest with yourself is extremely supportive. Not necessarily easy, because you may not like what you see, or you may not want what you're seeing. So just take a moment to reflect on that, perhaps pause, and come back to this later. Write it down, or just take note. So in any period of transition, because we're just at the beginning of spring, there can be a heaviness present because you're waking from a deep slumber. The winter period is a period of deep slumber and deep rest. Now, whether you actually gave yourself permission to rest during the winter season, that's a whole other conversation. So one of the questions you can ask yourself as you embark upon navigating this spring season is, are you awakening from a deep slumber? Take a moment. Not just in this moment related to spring, but the season of your life of blossoming. And as you awake from this deep slumber, what have you fallen asleep to? And ask yourself the question, how can I support myself in this transition? What types of food? Rest? Movement? Just to name 3 basic supports. And do you give yourself permission as you enter into this season of blossoming, flourishing, developing, budding, thriving? Do you alter the foods you consume? Do you shift the amount of rest you gift to yourself? Do you create shifts in your movement practices? You see, one of the things that gets in the way of blossoming is a heaviness, feeling weighted down. So a question to ask yourself is, well, what is weighing on me as a whole body mind? To keep it simple, you can get very specific with physical sensations of this weightedness and the thoughts associated. So wherever there's a weightedness, there's a lack of flow. So there's an opportunity to get curious in what will support me in returning to flow. What supports are necessary to support me in opening? When we open like a flower, in some sense, we are vulnerable. So if you don't like the idea of vulnerability, you're not accustomed to feeling open and vulnerable, this will prove challenging. And no matter how open you are in your mind, or how much you have a desire to be more open, to allow for a blossoming, when it comes to vulnerability, you want to practice opening where you feel support. And if the supports aren't in place, then the opening won't occur. So let's think about this for a moment. When you look at nature, let's just take a tree that buds flowers. If there's too much sun, there's too little sun, or there's just enough sun, that will support the blossoming process. If you take a look at the earth, are the roots that the tree is planted in, the earth that surrounds the roots, is it fertile? Is it filled with nutrients? If you think about yourself, your body, your whole body mind, are you rooted in a fertile, nourishing, supportive ground? And that not only includes the actual earth upon which you stand, but it's the company you keep, the conversations you engage in, and what you consume. Then if we think of water, when you think of water here, you want to think of water within your body, and there's a lot of water in the body, and without the body the body of water that you may be in touch with. Or even you can just consider contact with water from shower to bathing practices. And the organ connected with water in the body and its flow, the main organ, are your kidneys. And the kidneys are located on your lower back, and the adrenal glands sit right above them. And if you have a lot of stress in your life, this will impact how well the kidneys function. Because our organs need to be soft and need to be flowing. And stress and tensions and wear and tear will impact the experience of flow. And when our internal organs are flowing, this impacts the quality of our mind. Then we come to air. So we can associate this to breathing. What is your breathing like? Do you pay attention to your breathing? Is it smooth? Is it shallow? Do you struggle to take a deep inhale? A deep exhale? You can even consider the air that brushes up against your skin and that your skin brushes up against the air simultaneously. Do you get fresh air? And is there stale air that you breathe in or that you are surrounded by? Now, the liver in particular is an organ of regeneration. So what are you consuming? And how is that impacting the liver? And how is it supporting regeneration, which is deeply interconnected with flourishing, budding, developing, thriving, blossoming? So if we return to the heaviness, whatever may be weighing you down, when you ask yourself, what is it that's weighing on me? You can then ask yourself the question, what am I ready to let go of? And the mind likes to stay very, very general. So it's a practice to get very specific. One of the things you may be in the process of letting go of is an expired old way of being. Maybe you're ready to let go of the next layer of attachment you have to your identity. Maybe you're ready to let go of a tight hold you have on control, the need for control. Maybe you're ready to let go of fear. And if you're not quite sure what you're ready to let go of, that's okay. You can use this transition process during this spring season to ask yourself that question. And it may take a moment to gain clarity around this, so don't feel pressed. You could start with, well, what's stuck? Where do I feel stuck? What's not been digested? And just to clarify, everything that you'll come to as an answer is what you're actually conscious of. So we're not speaking here yet, at least in this episode, of anything that's unconscious. Only things that are in your awareness for now. And if you need support in coming to these answers because you haven't gained clarity. The reflections and episodes of the past couple of weeks on avoidance, emotions, self-care, nourishment, and grounding would be supportive in gaining clarity and being as specific as possible. You see, when it comes to growth and development in the body-mind, you want to work towards balancing out your listening. What do I mean by that? Well, the human being today is a being that tends to allow the mind to weigh in much more than the body. So in a sense, the listening is out of balance. So whenever anything is out of balance, to bring it back into balance, sometimes we have to skew to an extreme to invite balance back in. So say you're somebody who's extremely rational, you believe your thoughts, and the mind is predominant. Dropping down into the body and listening to the body is a journey. Can you give yourself permission to listen to the body without the filters of the mind? The mind will put the filters in, but will you be aware of the filters? Will you be aware of the interpretations? Learning to listen to the body requires you to develop an attunement. It's like a tuning in to a radio station. At first, the signal there's a lot of interference. Makes that sound. If you think of a television, remember when televisions had antennas? I know I'm dating myself a bit here, but how you would move the antenna around and you would see the lack of clarity on the screen, and you would continue to move it or ground it some more until the picture became clear. This is kind of what it's like when you begin to learn to listen to your body. Something that each and every one of us has available to us, and we'll just stick with 5, are the 5 senses. Focusing on your 5 senses one at a time, tapping into your senses without going into sensory overload, supports you in grounding into your body because the senses are located in your body. And they support you in developing present moment awareness. I've created an offering called Sensescapes that supports that process through pure hearing. So you may want to check that out to support yourself and just play with that a little bit. So when it comes to blossoming, development, growing, budding, flourishing, thriving, it's important to remind yourself from time to time that growth happens on its own timeline. And it never looks like what we think it will. And the first step is allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to outgrow, to let go. So whatever is next for you can blossom. So as you navigate the transition into spring and the spring season in general, I do hope you will have found this reflection supportive. As always, I love to hear about how the reflection resonates with you, so please feel free to reach out. If you feel that you know someone that you would find could use a listen, please share, like an episode, so more people will gain access to this conversation.